Gopijana Vallabha Gidivadadha Yasodhanandana Brajajana Yamuna Dhira Sanacha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihar Gopijana Vallabha Gidivadadha Gopijana Vallabha Gidivadadha Yasodhanandana Brajajana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihar Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihar Manandasya Vinanjana Savakaya Chaksurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Savadati Mantriyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sarvetam Sarvabhutam Purijanashritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sadhana Shri Shakanikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Bhaktivedanta Swami Vishwanusade Devi Pranamami Haripriye Mancha Kalpatarubhyasya Prabhavandurevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita
Krishna. Hare Krishna. I'd like to begin the class this evening with the prayers that Prabhupada offered to his Guru and Krishna as he arrived in the Boston harbor. These are not all the prayers, but they're very significant prayers, so I'll read them. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or a failure as you like. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message, so if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel engladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappiness, all unhappy conditions of life. Oh Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, oh Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhaktivedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta. So we can understand from these prayers how Prabhupada took full shelter in Guru and Krishna, thinking himself very lowly and unqualified, and that the mission that he had been given by his spiritual master would seem impossible. But as he points out here, he has full faith in Krishna, Krishna's name and Krishna as a person. So that by taking shelter of the Guru and Krishna's lotus feet, he could invoke the mercy needed in order to be successful. So Prabhupada was Krishna's ambassador, and he spread Bhakti where Bhakti had never been spread before. So even amongst acharyas, he was very special, because no one had attempted to do what he was going to do, and what he succeeded to do. In fact, he himself was surprised to the extent of his success. So he did the impossible. He made the impossible possible. And now to this day we are celebrating the 50th anniversary, at least of the preaching here in UK. And And somehow or other we got swept up into the Hare Krishna movement. We didn't really know what we were doing, to be honest. Most of us were ex-hippies. And I came to the temple on an invitation to a Sunday love feast. That's what I came for, to take some free food. And I didn't very much like the kirtan, and I couldn't even understand the philosophy, the class. Something about you're not this body, your spirit, soul. But I did understand the feast. And I can tell you, there were 15 preparations every Sunday. One sweet plate and one salty plate. Prabhupada had told the devotees that in the beginning of Krishna Consciousness you should eat as much as you like. You should walk away from the temple like a duck. And that's what I did every Sunday. I came out like this. Couldn't wait for the next Sunday. And then one devotee approached me. He said, "Oh, you like our food, why didn't you come for lunch as well, every day?" So I said, "Why not?" So I came. And 3 months was all I did, take prasad. And then one evening as I was coming home from the temple on a double-decker bus, I was on the top of the bus. Suddenly something very mysterious happened. Even without me desiring to do it, I started to chant. And my tongue and lips were moving. They were jittering like anything. It was almost like someone controlled them suddenly. And I started chanting. And that evening I couldn't stop chanting. And I came back to the temple the next morning and I told the devotees that I had a problem. And they asked what your problem was. What is your problem? I said, I keep chanting your mantra and I can't stop. And they laughed. And one devotee said, "Do you know what you've been eating the last 3 months?" I said, "Good food." He said, "No. Prasad. Prasad is Krishna. Krishna is prasad. You've eaten so much prasad that now your tongue has been purified and Krishna is personally dancing on your tongue, inducing you to chant." So that was actually how I became a devotee. Just innocently coming to the temple, but the power of coming to the temple had such an impact. I remember first opening that door in Bury Place from the street into the temple. As I opened the door, this overwhelming spiritual energy hit me in the face. And I knew that this was something different. Not only the atmosphere, but the smell of incense, the food cooked in ghee and spices. This was an environment which I had never experienced before, even as a hippie. When Prabhupada started his preaching in New York, he was advised by one Nikhilananda Swami, who was a Mayavadi. You have to understand, Prabhupada didn't know anyone, so even if anyone spoke with him, it was comforting. So he would come to Nikhilananda's studio and Nityananda Swami he was a Mayavadi, so from the philosophical point of view, they didn't have any agreement on anything, because they're two opposites, personalism and impersonalism. And Nityananda used to preach to Prabhupada. He said, now you're in America, you should adopt the Western dress. You should eat with a knife and fork. You should abandon your strict vegetarian diet and wear pants. But Prabhupada said, no, I haven't come here to beg anything, I've come to give. So I will not make any changes in my own lifestyle. This is how I am. I am a Vaishnava, and as a Vaishnava we maintain the Vaishnava practices and principles. We don't compromise just because we're in a different place. So Prabhupada, he would wear a dhoti and kurta and jumper and a heavy coat as he walked in the streets of New York. And Prabhupada hat. I think we used to call it the Prabhupada hat, which came down over the ears, tied up under the chin. So this was Prabhupada's point, that most Indians had come to the West to beg from the Westerners, technology and whatever. He said, I haven't come to beg anything, I've come to give the highest knowledge. And sometimes people ask me, what was it that Prabhupada, what was it that attracted you to Prabhupada the most? And that's a difficult question to answer, because Prabhupada was unique in every aspect of life, and whatever he said and did was total Krishna consciousness. But if I was to narrow it down, Prabhupada gave us the truth, whereas others lied to us. So this is one of the unique phenomena, unique gifts that Prabhupada gave us, that he told the truth. He set the scene. He declared war on the Western mentality. The Western mentality is that everyone's thinking that they're their body. Everything is revolving around the bodily concept of life. So he introduced Bhagavad Gita, and in this second chapter Krishna explains the difference between the body and the soul, and that the soul is eternal, and therefore we are eternal. So telling the truth allowed us to think about life more seriously. If you're told you're your body, you don't think about anything. You just, as the philosophy goes, eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow you die. That's the materialistic philosophy in a nutshell. So Prabhupada was telling us, you don't die, you're eternal spirit souls, parts of Krishna. And human life is not meant for living like cats and dogs, hogs, camels, asses. Human life is meant for perfection, spiritual perfection. So Prabhupada's believability, I mean, he believed what he was saying 100%. So when he said it, it didn't just enter your ear and out the other side, but it actually entered into the heart. So some of his admonitions for preaching was that, first of all, he was a saintly person and he had a mystical connection with Krishna. So that's a powerful piece of ammunition to start a worldwide organization. He also had good reasoning power and good arguments. He also was from India. He was from the Vaishnava tradition, and he was connected to many wonderful acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So in that sense, he had a lot of credibility. Whenever he said something, it was not just something, just like the last few weeks we've had politicians saying so many things, promising so many things. But there will be no difference because their promises are hollow promises. Their promises are just a pack of lies, more lies, for us to become disappointed in life again. But when Prabhupada told something, it was coming directly. Also, it was coming from the Bhagavad Gita. It was coming from Krishna. So it had a lot of weight and a lot of power. He would make quotes like, "I'm not just saying this, but I'm convinced." He would say, "Rest assured, take it from me. I know what I'm talking about. It is a fact, so please take it and accept it from me. Take it from me. There are higher planets. Just because you cannot understand and you cannot touch with your senses, that doesn't mean to say it does not exist." Of course, Prabhupada would get many challenges. Some challenges were of, no value really. More like, challenging, in a way that's condescending. So these are some challenges. Someone asked once, "Are you happy?" And then Prabhupada replied, "If I told you yes, would you believe me?" So Prabhupada was expert in not getting trapped by questions. Being able to turn the question around and putting the question before the person who asked the question. Or sometimes he would answer the question in a way that, "This is how you should have asked the question." So that, in that sense, sometimes he didn't accept a question. "Are all your devotees pure devotees? How many pure devotees are there on the planet?" Prabhupada replied, "This is not a very intelligent question." Of course, sometimes when that was asked by a devotee, he would say, once there was a devotee that asked, "How many pure devotees are there in this world?" And then Prabhupada asked, "How many devotees there are in ISKCON?" So at that time there were 1,000 devotees. So he said, "Well, there are 1,000 liberated souls." So, good evening, liberated souls. His meaning is that as soon as you take up the practice of Krishna consciousness, as soon as you chant, as soon as you do any service, whatever the service is, then you get transformed onto a liberated platform. So our 16 rounds is important because that keeps us aloof from the mundane sphere of material life. And he said that if you simply chant your 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, then you'll have no anxiety. In fact, he also said that if you can chant your rounds by 10 o'clock in the morning, you'll have no anxiety throughout the day. If you leave some rounds till 8 o'clock at night, you have anxiety all through the day, knowing that, oh, I still got 5 rounds to do. Right? So he was suggesting that we chant as early as possible, so that whatever we do during the day after chanting, then it has much more power and potency. There's much more effect. It's more effective in whatever you say and do. Another question, why don't you send your missionaries to Muslim countries instead of preaching in India? Yeah, Indians sometimes got really upset with our preaching. I remember I was in London, and Prabhupada said, he wanted some disciples to go to India to preach. So I was thinking, well, anything's better than London, so let me go. So I went to India, and I was in Bombay. Gopal Krishna Maharaj was in charge there. And I remember one night, and you have to understand, in those early days, we didn't really have a temple. We had some roof, a corrugated roof, and there was not even any walls around. And the deity had an enclosure, just like this little enclosure, Radharasa Bihari. That was our temple. And one Swamiji one night was giving a class. It was a really wonderful class. He was very expert. He had already been in India many, many years. But after his class, one frustrated Hindu stood up and started shouting, "Why Krishna? Why all this Krishna, Krishna, Krishna? Why not Durga? Why not Shiva? Why not Ganesh?" So this was his challenge. Well, this Swami, he just he thrashed him. He said, well, if all the gods are the same, why are you excluding Krishna? Because that's the idea. All the gods are the same, we just put everyone on the altar and we worship all the gods. Krishna is the same as anyone else. So all right, if all the gods are the same, why are you excluding Krishna? And he said, no, you will not worship Krishna. Because Krishna is Hari. And Hari means the one who takes things away from you. This is the difference between demigod worship and the worship of Krishna. The demigods give you what you want, but Krishna will only give you what you need. So that's why you're worshiping demigods. You will not worship Krishna because you know he can take things away from you. One time Prabhupada was in Delhi at a pandal, and he just finished his class and he came down off the stage. He was walking out, one Indian gentleman and his wife approached Prabhupada, bowed down at his feet, touched his feet, and then they stood up and the man said, "Please, Swamiji, give me your blessings." And Prabhupada said, "No, you don't need my blessings." And he said, "No, Swamiji, I came especially tonight to get your blessings." And Prabhupada said again, "You don't need my blessings." No, Swamiji. I am coming just to get the shade of your lotus feet, a benediction from you. So he was insisting, so Prabhupada said, "Okay, you get my blessings. I will pray to Krishna that he take all your material opulence away from you." "Oh, no, Swamiji, not those blessings." So this is what you had to deal with in those days. Frustrated Hindus who could not accept that Krishna was the Supreme. So it was actually difficult, just as difficult preaching in India as preaching in the West. Another question, do you know everything? Prabhupada's answer, I know what Krishna wants me to know, and he will tell me. We don't need to know everything. We are preachers. We're trying to assist Lord Chaitanya in his mission. We don't need to know everything. We don't need to know about electrical wiring and how to put a window in place. We don't need to know how to take a tooth out from the mouth. Because sometimes people challenge like that. What are you doing, dancing in the street, begging from people? Why don't you get a decent job? Why don't you be a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist? Do something which is of some value in society. That's their challenge. And our challenge back is, there's many institutions, many universities, many subject matters. But where's the subject which describes the soul, the eternal soul? Where is that university that explains the real facts of life, spiritual facts? There is no university, and therefore this is our work, and it's very significant. We're offering the highest welfare to human society so that people can attain the highest perfection. Prabhupada said that the highest achievement in human society is to perfect your life, spiritual perfection, and go back home, back to Godhead. So therefore we're very much needed in the world, in society. Equality or equal opportunities without any distinction. Prabhupada never made any distinction between the men and the women in his society, in our society. And he treated everyone equally. One time, I think it was Yamuna approached Prabhupada saying that according to our philosophy, the Prabhus, they have a sufficient intelligence to go back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime. But we are women, we're less intelligent. So therefore there's not the same opportunity. And Prabhupada's reply was, yes, that's correct if you think you are a woman. He said, but you're not a woman, you're a Vaishnavi. You know, women, they have a specific, you know, I don't know how you do it, but a Vaishnavi, you know, she's, what do you do this on the Sankirtan? You do your dancing. So it's different. It's one is completely on the bodily concept, and the other is spirit soul dancing for Krishna. Another time, this was in 1973, it was the second Mayapur festival. I was actually attending that festival. The first Mayapur festival was in 1972, and 20 devotees attended that festival. In 1973, 200 devotees came from around the world. And Prabhupada also invited his godbrothers from, you know, they came from different places, Navadvip, Calcutta. There was quite many godbrothers, and Prabhupada allowed them to speak something. This was Gaur Purnima Day. And some were favorable, but others were actually a little bit critical. They didn't like, because Prabhupada had made substantial changes within the Gaudiya tradition. And specifically, that women were allowed in the ashram, and that they were being given Gayatri mantra. This had never been done before. But Prabhupada had studied the relationship between men and women in the West, and he could see that this was not something you could change. The attraction between men and women was already there, and so therefore he adjusted things accordingly, so that, you know, he said that if I don't invite women to the society, then no men would join. So we have both men and women in our ashrams. And besides that, he said there's equal opportunity for everyone to go back home. But these godbrothers, some of them were very critical. And anyway, after the talking was over, Prabhupada asked Malati to serve the sannyasis prasadam. So she started serving prasadam to all the sannyasis. And you can imagine, there's these big Gaudiya Vaishnava sannyasis, you know, being served by Malati Devi Dasi. So Prabhupada saw the uncomfortable feeling they had. So he said, this is Malati Devi Dasi, she's my disciple, and she would cut her throat for me, and I would cut my throat for her. So end of story. He made it very clear that you may make distinctions, but I'm not. Lord Chaitanya's movement is for everyone. Of course, in our society, we went off track. We saw that Prabhupada accepted everyone, but in 1975 there was a big fight between the sannyasis, brahmacharis, and the grihastas. The sannyasis would preach to the brahmacharis, when you go out on book distribution, don't sell any books to women. Because if you do, they may become devotees. And if they become a devotee, you may have to marry one of them. One sannyasi said to Prabhupada, I'm never going to speak to a woman ever again. Prabhupada said, where is such an injunction? there was the Vaikuntha theater group from New York. The director, Sudama, he became a sannyasi after some time. So he approached Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, I'm still the director of the Vaikuntha players, and I have to deal with men and women. So what shall I do? And Prabhupada said, this is your test. Don't run away from your test. We don't run off into the mountains just because, there's some inconvenience. This is your test. So continue your service and do it in the mood of assisting the Guru. Be detached, and nothing can harm you. Anyway, women were more tolerated than accepted in those days. They went through many classes where they were informed that they were less intelligent, without any proper understanding that when a female body engages in devotional service, they actually transcend the bodily concept of a woman, and they're understood to be Vaishnavis, and it should be accepted. Of course, nowadays things have changed a lot since those early days. We have even GBC members who are women. We have kirtaniyas, we have temple presidents who are women. So, therefore, it's much more balanced nowadays. I think there's just been a resolution from the GBC that they're going to start allowing women to become spiritual leaders, gurus in the society. But that was Prabhupada's mood from the very beginning. He saw everyone the same. He didn't make a distinction. He would sometimes walk down the road on a morning walk with a couple of ladies. He didn't, he didn't make any statements suggesting that it was not proper. If you have any questions while I'm telling these stories, then you can always put your hand up. One time Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, and there was a room full of devotees just like tonight. And suddenly he asked the devotees, so how do you know Krishna's God? So everyone was silent, thinking, what should we say? One devotee said, well, Prabhupada, you know Krishna's God because Krishna says so in the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada said, no. You know Krishna's God because when you serve him, you feel so much pleasure. So Gurudas was Prabhupada's servant during that time, and 1 year later he was still Prabhupada's servant, and he was in Bombay and he asked the same question. So how do you know Krishna's God? So Gurudas said, well, I know the answer to this one. He said, Prabhupada, you know Krishna's God because when you serve him, you feel great pleasure. Prabhupada said, no, you know Krishna's God because he says so in the Bhagavad Gita. And the point here is that in different places he would say different things. In India everyone's already happy. You don't have to preach on that platform. They're already in the mode of goodness, relatively in the mode of goodness and happy. So you never tell them, look, if you take to this Krishna consciousness, you'll be happy. But in the West, you have to say that, because no one's happy. Yeah? But in India, you can't say, if you take to Krishna consciousness, you'll be happy. But if you say, well, because Krishna says so, that he, then, Bhagavad Gita says so, then okay, I'll accept it. It's interesting. When Prabhupada was staying in the Radha Damodar temple, his servant one day saw Prabhupada washing his own dhoti and kurta in a bucket. So he asked Prabhupada, I would be more than happy to wash your clothes for you. Prabhupada replied, I can wash my own clothes, and that way I can remain independent. Another time I saw him on his hands and knees scrubbing the floor. When he looked up and saw me, he said, be as independent as possible. Sometimes as a sannyasi, you get everything done for you. Practically not allowed to do anything some places, especially in Russia and Ukraine. Anyone here from Russia, Ukraine? No. Wow, a temple without Russian devotees. That's pretty good. Yeah, so I have a base in Lithuania, which it's a 2-hour drive from the main city. I planned it like that so that, whenever I want to rest, then I don't get bothered when someone ringing me. Can you give the Bhagavatam class tomorrow? But the other reason is that I can actually spend some time and be a sannyasi. Wash my own clothes. Wash my own floor. I think it's very important for us to, sometimes be a sannyasi. We should be allowed to be a sannyasi. And so sannyasi, as Prabhupada said, he's not dependent on anyone. He's independent. He just depends solely on Krishna, Guru and Krishna, that's all. And he can do everything himself. So we can cook ourselves, we can clean ourselves, we can do our own shopping. I have a bicycle, It's an old-fashioned bicycle with a basket in front. So I go do my shopping, put the bag in the basket, and then drive back to the base and do my cooking. Simple life. Of course, we're supposed to also offer ourselves to, so that devotees can serve. They say serving a sannyasi is special. I don't know. They say like that. But if we have to serve, if we have to allow people to serve us, then that's our duty too. I was telling you the story today about how in the old days when in Barry Place we would get a lot of invitations from Indian people and Indian families. Please come to our home, have kirtan. And we would do that, and we would go to their homes and then have pravachan, kirtan. And then late at night, like 9 o'clock, they would serve us prasadam. Well, we soon learned that you cannot say no to Indians when it comes to serving prasadam. They would insist that we have more. Insist. And we didn't know how to say no to them. So we asked Prabhupada about this. We're going to the homes of Indian families and they're serving prasadam late at night, and they're forcing us to eat. What should we do? Because we can't get up next morning for Mangalarti. So Prabhupada said something very interesting. He said, you eat on behalf of Krishna. He said, they're serving the Vaishnavas, and because they're serving the Vaishnavas, they're making spiritual advancement. So sometimes you may not want to eat, but eat on behalf of Krishna. And that's the life of a sannyasi sometimes when you're in Russia or Ukraine. They make all these preparations and come, the plate comes in, there's 15 preparations. You only ask for khichdi. And then you've got to, sit and eat, because if you don't, the cooks get upset. Oh, Maharaj didn't eat my preparation. So you're trying to eat, a little bit of everything until you cannot eat any more. So I found a good way around this. I would say to my servant, after 5 minutes of me eating, come in with your plate. So then we can pile your plate up with prasad, and the cooks think that I've eaten the whole. So this eating on behalf of Krishna. So sometimes we have to do like that. We have to do things on just so that people make advancement. I mean, I'm sure Prabhupada did the same. He accepted invitations and respected prasadam late at night. Prabhupada smile. When Prabhupada smiled, it would start here on the chin and move up to the lips. Even the teeth would smile. His nose would smile. His eyes would smile. His eyebrows would smile. His whole face would just be an oceanic smile. So when Prabhupada smiled, you could not help smile too. You could even try, if you like, not to. No, not smiling. Sometimes you see that we always have square line. You have someone who's in one square every time he comes to the temple. He says, "This is my square." No, I'm not going to dance. This is my square. But we got to let ourselves go. Let go. Yeah, okay. We were born in the mud. Lotus flowers are also born in the mud, but they flower above the water. So because we're, doing everything for Krishna's pleasure, we can transcend the muddy water of material life, be transcendentally situated. We can be like the people of the spiritual world. They're always, what does it say in the Brahma Samhita? Every word is a song, and every step is a dance. Right? What do you think? Shall I tell you what I do to Russians? Say Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Okay. Okay, you follow me, okay? Okay? This is a symbol of freedom. you feel? Gotta let go. It's only in the materialistic society that they put you in a box and they tell you, get in that box. We'll tell you what to eat. We'll tell you what to drink. We'll tell you what clothes to wear. And we will tell you when you can come out of the box. Christmas time. That's material life. Completely controlled. They think they're free, but they're controlled like anything. And George Harrison, in his last album, was Brainwashed. You know that album? He did many albums, living in the material world. But his last album was called Brainwashed, and it was all about how the society brainwashes people. I mean, one specific song on that album was also called Brainwashed. How we're actually brainwashed in so many different ways. And we don't even know it. We think we're free. But actual real freedom is Krishna consciousness. One time Prabhupada was in Bombay and he was invited to the Birla home. The Birlas, they were the richest family in India at the time. And the servant phoned Mrs. Birla in the morning, "What would you like Prabhupada to talk about tonight?" So he had a list of subjects. Of course, Prabhupada could talk about anything, but he thought he would at least write some subjects down so that she could pick. So one of the subjects was how to be successful. So that's what she picked. And when Prabhupada heard about it, the subject tonight, Prabhupada, is how to be successful. So he said, just see. He said, just see. They're already successful, but they want to hear about how to be more successful. This is the nature of material success. There's no end. No end. No end in sight. You want more and more and more and more. So anyway, that night he surprised everyone. He said, if you worship Durga Devi, she will give you all kinds of material opulence. But she will also give her trident along with it. Her trident has 3 spikes to threefold miseries. So you get what you want, but you also get the trident right up your backside. He said Durga Devi is in charge of the material energy. He said better that you dovetail your worship to Durga Devi to Radharani. She's in charge of the spiritual energy. This is real success. He said, even if Durga Devi gives you something, so what's the value? You're still in the material world. He gave an example. He said, let's say someone's in a prison house and the superintendent of the jailhouse knocks on your jail door. Good morning. I am feeling charitably disposed today. I am going to give you whatever you want. Name it and I will give it to you. So the person in the jail, he can't believe his ears. You mean anything? Yeah, whatever you want. I'm feeling so light-hearted. Just name it, I'll give it. So the man in jail is thinking, what do I want? Well, could you get me a better bed? I mean, this bed's so hard, I can hardly sleep at night. He said, is that all you want? Yeah, just give me a good bed, I'll be happy. This is what it is. You're approaching demigods just to get a better situation in the world, a better job, some better facilities, a nice big fast car, but you're still in the jailhouse. And so therefore, it is not real success. It's an illusory success. Real success is to get out of the material world and go back home. So this is how he gave his class. They were the richest persons in India at the time. Birla, you know Birla? Yeah. So Prabhupada wasn't bashful. He would just, didn't matter who it was. He just gave the truth. He didn't compromise it at all. So how long does this class go on? Huh? Okay. Well, here's a nice example of a jailhouse. Samsara means the wheel of life, spinning in a circle of birth, death, old age, and disease. And again, rebirth, born again and again and again, and again 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 and again, born again. So he probably gives this example, just like a hamster in a cage, is running and running on its little wheel, yet remains in the same place. You've seen this hamster. He's like this. Wheel's going really fast. He's thinking, wow, I'm really speeding up here. I'm really going somewhere. But he's going nowhere. So this is the problem in the material world. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. More birth, death, more birth, death. We celebrate birthdays. I'm 21 years old today. I'm 55 years old. I'm 77 years old. And everyone, sings happy birthday to you. They gave you a cake with candles. You blow the candles. Happy birthday. But that's another illusion, because are you really 21? Are you 55? Are you 77? More like 1,000,000 years old today. Is one of George Harrison's songs. You've been crying for 1,000,000 years. Crying for 1,000,000 years. And in each life we're thinking, I'm 21, There's another illusion. You're 1,000,000 years old today, so what are you going to do? You're expecting a cake? You want someone to chant happy birthday? No, it's embarrassing when you think of it, that we had to stay here so long and taking birth, repeated birth and death, and going nowhere. So Prabhupada was the person who opened the hamster door and said, get out of there. And that is our freedom. This is why we're free. Because we're outside the cage. We're on the royal road, back home, back to Godhead. Sometimes we don't even realize the mercy that's been given to us. We take it for granted. No big deal. But actually, if we were to study the many gifts that Prabhupada has given us, and specifically that gift of opening the cage door, saying, get out of there, I can show you eternal life. So it's significant. So we're so lucky. Yeah. Who said that? Yeah, awesome. Questions? Guru Das asked Prabhupada, he said, are there any mosquitoes in the spiritual world, in Krishna Loka? Prabhupada said, well, if there are mosquitoes in the spiritual world, they don't bite, they sting.
Maharaj, you were saying about birth and death, we continuously die and take birth, continuously die and take birth. So, due to a forgetfulness, we forget. So as soon as we have some happiness in our lives, we think, this is it. I mean, even as devotees, I think to myself, yes, there's going to be death. Yes, I will retake birth. Obviously, I will leave this body. I will retake birth again, or maybe in a good family. But how do we continuously keep that in the mind that we will not take birth, and this is our last life? So in this lifetime, I will go perform Bhaktivedanta.
Yeah, this is the process of devotional service. We're learning the art of living, but we're also learning the art of dying. And learning the art of dying means that we're fully aware of our position, that at any moment, we could be taken away from all the attachments that we have. So, as we perform devotional service, Krishna says in the Gita, we develop automatically knowledge and detachment. But it takes many years to perfect that. And if you were to ask me, I'm in a stage at the moment where I can't wait to leave. In Russia, they have these toilets in the garden. And when you go inside, it's just a hole. And you do your business and get out. So you have to hold your nose too. So I see the material world like that. It's a horrible, stinking place. If you think the material world is a nice place, then you're still in an illusion. If you see it as a stool house in the garden, and where you have to do your business and get out as quick as possible, this is the art of dying. I can't wait. I mean, as a Prabhupada disciple, I can actually come up to Prabhupada and say, it's okay, Prabhupada, your movement is going to go on. Please get me out of here. This is a horrible place. And the thing is, the problem, of course, in this world is that the older you become, the more you see the changes have taken place since many years back, and the changes are not positive. There's more and more degradation. So how can you live in a world where there's nothing positive? The only positive thing is that Krishna Consciousness is now being spread. But I'm personally confident. I look around and I see so many wonderful devotees, very qualified devotees. I will stay as long as Prabhupada wants me to stay, but I'm also ready. I already got one foot in the spiritual world. I don't need to stay here. So this is something that I've developed over the years. I've been practicing for 47 years, so maybe you haven't been practicing so long. How long have you been practicing? 20? Yeah. Give it another 15, you make it somewhere close. Prabhupada said it takes at least 12 years to forget your first 20 years in material life. He told Sri Kirti that, he said, whatever you say and do after 12 years of being a devotee, it'll have so much more meaning and potency, because you'll have more faith, you'll have a lot of determination, many realizations. But we've been dancing to Maya's tunes for so long. Why should it not take 12 years to realize you're a devotee? We're performing the activity, but do we really understand we're devotees? Have we stopped asking that question, do I want to be a devotee? That question goes on, repeating day after day for years and years. But at one point, it's obvious, becomes obvious, of course I want to be a devotee. I want the perfection of life. So Prabhupada called it the society, the purificatory process of Krishna consciousness. So as you purify yourself, the more you become detached from this world and the things of it. So I'll come back in 15 years' time and see how you're doing. Anything else?
What you mentioned about as you for 12 years forget your previous life and you're spending some time in Krishna consciousness, and you do realize, maybe not fully, but you do realize that it's just futile to work so hard for the things which is going to take away anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And but you still, you need to be part of the society. You still need to work. And because of the Krishna consciousness, we are not that motivated to work very hard. But still, to maintain our body and soul and house and family together, and you have to work hard. How do we get that motivation? Well, at the same time, you're not interested in the whole rat race.
Well, first you have to have the right understanding. Prabhupada says it in the 18th chapter where Krishna says, don't give up your duty, don't give up your giving charity and a few other things. He says, duty, Anyway, work, duty. Huh? And one Prabhupada says that even if you work in a factory, as a devotee, if you work in a factory, you're not really you're not working like the other workers. You're aloof. You're working, but you're aloof. You're there to maintain your family. So you don't have really anything to do with the factory, the workers, or the work in the factory. It's just a service for you to maintain your... It's not what you do in this world, but it's the consciousness you do it in. Anything can be used in Krishna's service, so that means any job can become devotional service. So that's the first thing. Don't think that your service is material. Don't think that raising children is material. It's a spiritual activity. There's nothing material in the face and eyes of a devotee. Everything he's doing is for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. It's like, when I joined in England, but then after a couple of years I was sent to Sweden. Sweden's a different kind of place than England. Suddenly I was on the street at 20 below zero, giving out books in a language I didn't understand. I remember those days, and some mornings I would be preaching to myself. Dhirasanta, are you crazy or something? Like no sane person would do what we did. But why did we do it? Because it was the order of Guru. Go and give out my books. We had enough faith, just like Prabhupada says, I have faith in Krishna, I have faith in the holy name. We had faith in Prabhupada's word. So whatever it took, we did it. And I haven't stopped since those days. Sometimes I'm asked, so what's your secret? You've been a devotee for 47 years. And I can tell them that I have two secrets. And this is why I'm still a devotee. I was waiting for someone to ask. Secret number one, I've always preached. Even as a Grihastha. I remember we were here in Plymouth, southwest of England, me and my wife, my former wife. She's from Finland. And it wasn't easy for her also to come from Finland to England. And 250 miles away from the temple. And what do? We were preaching. But then I said to her one day, let's spend 1 year not preaching and see what it's like. We lasted about 3 weeks. It was so boring. So we got back into the preaching again. So that's number one. I've always preached. Preaching is our life. This is a preaching movement. Preaching means bothering someone. First you got to stop them. So there's so much reward, and Gornitai is so pleased with our efforts. You want to know number 2?
Yes.
I'm not telling you. Number 2, I've always preached in difficult places. From Sweden, I was there for 15 years, then I went to Finland, Helsinki. They say if you can make a devotee in Finland, you can make a devotee anywhere. I can tell you what happened. I was doing festivals in Sweden, but then I saw there was a festival in Finland, a Puri Jazz Festival. So I took the brahmachari and said, let's go, we're going to go to a festival this weekend. We'll give out prasadam and we'll chant. So we were there for the weekend, and people really liked the devotees. And on the Monday evening, we had a program in Helsinki, in one hall. One photographer was there taking photographs. And then the next morning, in the front page of the newspaper, it said that Hare Krishna comes to Finland. And that night we were leaving back to Sweden. And I had to make a conscious decision. Is Prabhupada telling me something here? Hare Krishna comes to Finland and we're leaving tonight? So at the end of the day, I told the devotees, look, you go on, I'm staying. That's how I started to finish Yatra. That's how we were in those days. Any one little slight hint that what we should do next, we did it. I had no contacts. I was also loitering in the streets, like Prabhupada was in New York. It was bliss. So that was 1981. By 1985, we won the 1985 Christmas Marathon. The whole world, we bet, we had beaten the whole world. We were the tops. And we had about, 8 Sankirtan men. So this is a miracle. Don't ask me how it was done. I don't know. But that's how it is. It's a miracle. You can't say you are in control. You're just a puppet, and you do what you're told. And then Krishna helps. So these are my 2 secrets. Always preach in difficult places. So is Manchester a difficult place?
Yes.
You're in the right place. Couldn't be better. Tip top. Oh, 7:10. Thank you so much for listening. Srila Prabhupada ki, chanting 16 rounds every day ki, going back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
So Maharaj will be continuing the same talk tomorrow, 12:30. Everybody start the program. Class will start about 1 o'clock. And is here. We take notice of the association. Nowadays he rarely comes to UK. His teaching is based in Lithuania and Eastern European and Asian countries. So, and I asked Maharaj, why don't you come regularly? But he has no such plans to come to UK regularly. So, if you show your love and your desire to see Maharaj again and again in UK, you have to show it personally today and tomorrow, and then he might come again to give us association. So
He's good, huh? He's your temple president.
So again, Maharaj is very humble. He didn't touch some of the topics that we wanted to hear. Is that how the initial devotees, how much trouble they took, to hear where we are now. Well, I don't know, give another class, after Maharaj's class. But one story he told me yesterday was that in those days, getting arrested, devotees getting arrested was a very common thing. Practically all the devotees in initial days were all getting arrested. And so it was not something new. Now recently, I think it was in Brighton, Maharaj, you said, that Maharaj, why don't you tell the whole story by your words, rather than a second hand. Please tell the story of, Maharaj, please tell the story, at least one story of how it was like in old days and how it has changed in Brighton.
Okay, well, on Oxford Street, the police would come with a big van, and the police would come alongside the Harinam and park a little bit in the front, and then jump out and grab us all and throw us in the back and take us to the police station. And the only thing they could have us for was obstruction, and there would be a fine. The temple would have to fine. So it was kind of a regular occurrence. And in Edinburgh, I remember, not only did we get arrested, but we were put in these boxes in the street where they would search for drugs, because they thought we were taking drugs, because no sane man would sing and dance in the street. So this is what it was like. I remember I was with Adi Carter once distributing in what's that town? And we were distributing some books early in the morning. And one big police lady, she came and she said, hello, what's going on here then? This is my beat. You're in my beat, you have to go. So we went around the corner and started distributing again. She came back. I told you to get off my beat. This is my beat. You can't do this here. Okay, you're nicked. So she was on the phone calling a squad car to arrest us. And I looked at Adi Carter, he looked at me, and I went, and Adi Carter went. So I started running up the road. I looked behind and Adi Carter's just standing there. I didn't stop, I just carried on, and the policewoman was blowing her whistle. Stop that man, stop him! So all kinds of people were trying to stop me and I was pushing them out of the way. And then suddenly someone did a rugby tackle on me. Got my legs and got me on the floor. So I'm like this on the floor and this lady puts her knee on my chest. She said, yeah, so many people have tried to get away from me, but They never stand a chance. Something like that. So then this police car came. They handcuffed me. They took me to the jailhouse, which was below the courthouse. 3 hours I was in the jail. But I was determined to remain Krishna conscious, so I chanted a lot of rounds, and I chanted Bhagavad Gita verses. So then they took me up to the judge, and the judge had his long hair and his glasses. He's looking over his glasses. So, Mr. Thompson, what do you have to say for yourself? So I decided to treat him like a demigod. I just kept my head down low. And I said, look, Your Honor, I'm so sorry that I've caused so much disturbance in your town today. But it wasn't not intentional. I came just, to distribute the books of my spiritual master on his order. But there was no way I was coming here to make a disturbance. I apologize, and please forgive me for all the inconveniences that I've caused today. So like that, I was very humble to him. And for him, it was like a brand new day. He's never in his life that he had someone so humble. So he's, well, okay, Mr. Thompson, what should we do with you? Oh, okay, conditional discharge. You can go. And I turned around to see the police lady. She went red. She was hoping to get a promotion. So I came out of the courthouse, and there's Adi Carter standing there. And he's laughing like anything. I said, why didn't you come with me? He said, you think I'm a fool like you? So anyway, those are the kind of pastimes we would have with the police. Of course, in those days, people were... there wasn't so much crime, so the police had to do something. So the only thing they had was to arrest the Hare Krishnas. But then the crime came more in focus. More and more people were... So the police became more busy with real criminals. But in this story down in Brighton, I just heard from the leader there. He said that we were just a couple of weeks ago on the street in the middle of the town center. We had our book table and selling books. And this homeless person came up and started disturbing the devotees, criticizing them, like, who are you guys anyway? You're taking people away from their homes, and I don't know if he said brainwash, but you can imagine he was upset about the things that we were doing, and he was shouting, and I'm gonna tell the authorities on you. I'll tell the town council. You're not supposed to be doing this. So then he went away. About half an hour later, the police came, and the devotees were thinking, we're in trouble. So a sergeant came up. He said, good morning. How is everything? And we're okay. He said, yeah, we had a complaint. One person on the street saw you being harassed by a homeless person. We just came to see if you're okay. So what a change. We just came to see if you're okay. And they sometimes wave. I've seen them waving at the Harinam when they're in their cars. So this is the transformation that has taken place over the years. London has become purified. Manchester, Edinburgh, all these places, they have heard the holy name so much that. So in those days, if you said you were even a vegetarian, they were kind of like, "Whoa, which planet do you come from?" You know. But nowadays, you know, it's vegetarian society is the fastest growing society in the UK. The vegan society is coming up fast. And all these other, you know, household words like yoga, meditation, karma, reincarnation, they're all household words. There's nothing new. Whereas in those days it was all new. People couldn't really figure out who we were. We looked quite strange. But now today what I see is that devotees get a very pleasant reception wherever they go. Even they get invited to the parliament for Diwali and things like that. The Prime Minister came to Bhaktivedanta Manor recently. So, you know, it means that we are accepted. And you know, there's still places in the world where it's difficult. I mean, Russia is, you know, although there's many devotees, they still have a hard time. Some places chanting on the street. But, you know, again, it's just a matter of time before the tide will turn there too. So, have no doubts. We're on course. We have the best books, we have the best food, we have the best lifestyle, we have the best of everything. We don't like to say we're the best, but we are the best, because we have Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Ask 5 minutes kirtan.